Let me tell you, this guy could be a candidate, right? How about him being our next DA? Just putting it out there. I play favorites. Okay, now we're gonna get to our Newsom portion. As you know, this governor is where everything flows down to the local level, and it's just it's amazing what we were able to do from the grassroots. So people like you, everyone that's come out here, I see we the people out here made this happen. And 2.2 million signatures, can you believe that? Gathered by groups of people like Karen that's collecting petition signatures, all went around and cobbled together 2.2 million valid signatures pretty much in the state. So a bravo to everyone, we made it happen. And now the next step was to get a great candidate, right? Someone that can actually win, someone with universal name ID. And let me just tell you, we have a woman here that made this happen, okay? She is very modest, but I have known Ginny Sand for years. Ginny is a tireless activist. She is all about giving other people credit. She deserves some credit today because she is a rock star. She went and said, I'm gonna draft Larry Elder to run for governor. And she didn't stop. She called me, she called me and right away I was like, oh my God, of course, Ginny, I'm gonna help you. Okay, and so she's gonna intro Larry. And I'm just honored to intro Ginny because I love her so much. Ginny, don't be shy, come on stage.
Thank you all for showing up, because this is the only way that Larry wins, as popular as he is every one of us does 10 times more, gives 10 times more than we ever had before in our lives, and it will happen. I've known Larry, I first met Larry 28 years ago, when he was first on the radio and battling a group called the Talking Drum. I don't know how, did any of you remember the Talking Drum at Jackie's Bakeaway? I know that Larry remembers. And they were trying in the very beginning, calling him a racist, contacting his sponsors, trying to get him off the air. And immediately we knew this was something special. That there was no one else like this guy that we had ever heard. And so a ragtag group of us banded together and wrote the sponsors, and we battled them back to keep him on the air. And ever since, all of you over 30 have probably been listening to him for 25 to 30 years and loving this guy, right? And so he has written, not only has he been on the air, he's been on over 350 radio stations across the country in every major city in California. He's written 6 books, including my favorite, Dear Father, Dear Son. You must get that book and read it. Will be made into a movie, I'm sure, one day. It's absolutely fabulous. He's got a star on Hollywood Boulevard, not only on Hollywood Boulevard, at Hollywood and Vine, right next to Mary Pickford, the mother of Hollywood, right? That's where his star is. He's got an Emmy. He's had 2 television programs. This guy is everywhere, and he is, believe me, the only person who can save this state.
That's right.
And in saving this state and moving into the governor's mansion, this will create such electricity across the country. All eyes will be on California. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere, right? And what will happen is that will create such electricity and motivation across the country. It'll create a political tsunami across the country and help us retake the House and the Senate next year. This is bigger. This is bigger than just the governor's mansion, but let's get him there first. We need to get, and I will be sending out, any of you can contact me. I have donation cards, I have other cards. And you can contact me, and I will be getting you primers, all of you, especially all of you leaders of groups, primers of how a group in Redlands literally they put out a voter guide. It's very similar to what I have here. And they literally cover the entire city of not only Republicans, but decline-estaters and disaffected Democrats and libertarians and independents. They cover the entire city, and they get a 75% voter turnout. 75%. This is what we all need to do. So, without any further ado, let me introduce the rabble-rouser of all rabble-rousers, the insurgency candidate, my friend, and biggest fan, Larry Elder.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. You know, I had no intention. Let's try and get out of here before nightfall. What do you think? You know, Jenny, thank you so much. Mark, where are you? Right here. Mark, thank you. God bless. I had no intention of running for office. The last time I ran for office was 5th grade class president. And I beat William Moy, 3 out of 4 rows. They're still cleaning up the blood. And Jenny came, she wrote to me, and I said, who's this person? She keeps bugging me. And so Nina and I agreed to have dinner with her. That was a mistake. I figured I'd get rid of her, and that made her even more anxious, and she kept writing and writing and writing. She said, here's what can happen. Here's the people that will support you. Here's how much money you can raise. And I just kind of blew her off. Dennis Prager approached me. He asked me if I would run. I said, Dennis, what's the point? We have supermajorities of Democrats in the Senate and in the Assembly. If I veto something, next thing you know, they're going to override it. What's the point? And then I found out that a veto has not been overridden since the early 1970s. You didn't know that either, did you? No, I didn't either.
No.
Schwarzenegger vetoed a couple hundred bills. Not a single one was overridden. What happens is they pass something stupid. Even Jerry Brown vetoed a lot of stuff.
Yes, he did.
And then you go public, talk about why the bill was so stupid. Next thing you know, the senators' phones start ringing, the assembly person's phone start ringing, and the constituents go, what were you smoking? And they don't reintroduce the bill. And then I was approached by Pastor Jack Hibbs, Calvary Church, Costa Mesa, Orange County, and he asked me to run. And I said, So went from hell no to And then Lionel Chetwin, a filmmaker I've known for a number of years, asked me to run. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to start asking some normal people. So I asked my barber. I thought he was going to say, what are you thinking about, Larry? You have a great life. You're doing well. Why would you want to do all of this? Expose your private life. Nobody has had a perfect past. And by the way, I asked Pastor Jack about that. And he said, Larry, every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future.
Oh.
And then I thought about something that Pat Robertson said when he ran briefly. He said, as for the sins of my youth, either the Lord has forgiven me or the statute of limitations has run out. And I asked some other people, the guy where I take my laundry, and he said, you ought to do it. So nobody said no, and little by little I began to think, if not you, who? If not now, when? So now I'm in it to win it. Where do I start about the job this man has done, Gavin Newsom, in the last 2 years? Where do I start? Let's start with COVID. He slams down the state of California.
Shame on him.
In a way more severe than any other of the other 49 governors. Ignoring science, his own kids enjoying in-person private education. Right. He exempted his own winery from the mandates he was forcing down the throats of everybody else.
Shameful.
Sitting up there at that French Laundry. By the way, had anybody even heard of the French Laundry?
We do now.
I looked it up. I thought it was the most elite restaurant in California. It's not. I thought it was the most elite restaurant in America. It's not. It's one of the most elite restaurants in the world. He incurred a $12,000 wine tab. That's just for the wine. What's in the wine? What do you have in the wine? A TV set? What's in there? And he was sitting with the very same lobbyists and medical professionals who drafted the mandates they were violating by not wearing masks and by not socially distancing. It's a hypocrisy.
Rules for thee, not for
you know, I'm not only a lawyer, not only a talk show host, not only a filmmaker, but I also ran a small business for about 14 years. And it didn't go bankrupt. I didn't liquidate it. I sold it, came back out here. My point is, I have met a payroll. And it is hard to run a small business. Most small businesses fail. Those that do succeed are often just payroll to payroll. And this guy slammed down the hopes and dreams of countless Californians who had businesses. We don't even know how many yet because the bankruptcy courts are just now opening up. All we know is that only about half of the jobs have been restored here in California pre-pandemic, whereas national average is 2/3. And he's still paying people not to work. Yep. I've got a lot of friends who can't even get anybody because a group of economists from Bank of America, they're no Trumpers, they said anybody making around $32,000 or so is better off not working because of all the benefits being paid. It is ridiculous.
Yep.
Now that's just the coronavirus. Oh, and by the way, he just had a new mandate. Anybody work for the state?
Oh, God.
If you work for the state and you haven't been vaccinated, they're going to make you test every week and make you wear a mask at work. Now think about that. I have had my shots because I'm an old man, I've got comorbidities, but a lot of people have not made that decision. And this is a free country.
Yes.
And in California, virtually anybody who wants to get a shot has gotten one. And if you're poor, you can get one for free. So people have made the decision, for whatever reason, not to get them. Now, if you work for the state, they're going to mandate, if you haven't been vaccinated, you're going to be tested once a week, and you're going to wear a mask at work. What's the point in getting vaccinated? So the point is that you're not supposed to contract the coronavirus. But somebody who has not gotten the shot, has made the decision to assume the risk, has to wear a mask to protect other people who've made the decision to assume the risk. It doesn't make any sense. Again, it's anti-science.
Right.
And this man is totally beholden to the teachers union,
Yes.
and they did not want to go back to work.
That's right.
They were doing virtual, which is much easier, while getting full-time pay, by the way.
Disgusting.
Already, 80% of the public school kids in California are black and brown. These are the people that the left claims they care about. They're already behind. 75% of black boys in California cannot read at state levels of proficiency, and that was before the pandemic. And the state levels is a low bar. I went to Crenshaw High School. Anybody see Boys in the Hood? That's my high school. 2% of kids are math proficient at Crenshaw High School. Now, who sends their kid to a school where only 2% of kids are math proficient if they have an out? If I'm lucky enough to become governor, I'm going to be pushing school choice. So the money follows the child rather than the other way around. Now, some years ago, a study was done to find out where public school teachers send their own school-age kids.
It's not to the school.
Roughly 10% of families nationwide put their kids in private school. 6% of black families do. 44% of Philadelphia public school teachers with school-age kids have their own kids in private school.
Yep.
39% of Chicago public school teachers with school-age kids have their own kids in private school. LAUSD, a public school teacher is twice as likely to have his or her own kids in private school compared to a family without a public school teacher in it. That's the equivalent of opening up a restaurant, putting up a sign saying, "Come on in, just don't eat the food." The people who know the system the best aren't putting their own kids in them. And there was just a report, 2/3 of black parents who have kids at LAUSD do not want to send their kids back. And the reason primarily is because they believe the most incompetent teachers are there.
Yep.
They're not putting them in the West Side. They're not putting them in the Valley. They're putting them in South Central LA, where the parents are working too long, aren't going to put the same kind of pressure. So the kids that need a good teacher the most are not getting them. And that is why so many people are fed up. And that's why so many people now support school choice. And that's going to be one of my #1 agenda items. Don't get me started on the crime. Okay, you got me started on the crime. Homicide, shootings up in the Bay Area. Homicide, shooting up in LA. Homicide, shooting up in San Diego. Barbara Boxer, the former senator, just got mugged
Yep.
in Oakland. Somebody
That's
took her
right.
cell phone.
She
And
did.
just a week earlier, the Oakland PD, happened to be black, held a press conference talking about all the money being diverted from his PD. We're in LA. $150 million diverted from the LAPD in order for there to be black youth programs. By the way, that's probably unconstitutional, A. And B, think about it. Why are they having black youth programs? Because so many black kids are getting into trouble. Why are they getting into trouble? No fathers in the house. A
Black fathers
recovering
matter.
liberal named Lyndon Baines Johnson, a nouveau liberal, in 1965 launched what he called the War on Poverty. At the time, 25% of black kids were brought into the world without a father married to the mother. And you and I can have a discussion about how much of that is because of slavery and Jim Crow. But right now, it is almost 70% of black kids entering the world without a father married to the mother. And what Lyndon Johnson did in launching this so-called war on poverty is he incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. Now there is a Pulitzer Prize winning writer who wrote that when Lyndon Johnson signed the Great Society War on Poverty bill, he said, "I'm going to have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years."
Yep.
So they destroy the family, and then they're really good about dealing with the symptoms of what they destroyed by passing youth programs that wouldn't be necessary if the family has not been destroyed. Are you feeling me?
Yes.
Homelessness. Look, I was born here, and my father came here in 1945. The state was a whole lot less affluent than it is right now. Why didn't we have homelessness then? We're having it now? Doesn't make any sense.
That's right.
Why are we allowing this? We're putting up with this. It's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for us. The streets have already been paid for by taxpayers, and we cannot allow people to camp on them. Now, these people, many of them are mentally ill, some of them have substance abuses, and they need to be treated with care and with compassion. But they will get up off the street.
Get them off the street.
Some percentage of them are schizophrenic. By that I mean of danger to themselves or to others. I'm sorry if this may sound cold, but they literally need to be picked up off the street and put in an institution for themselves and for the welfare of everybody else. Some percentage, I don't know how many, just don't want to work. If you're going to go to work or you're going to go to jail, you can choose one. The rest of them have substance abuse problems. Now, the whole point behind Proposition 47 that voters passed, in my opinion, they were misled.
Yep.
Many people are stealing in order to support their meth habit or their heroin habit. So what we did is pass a law that says if you steal $950 or less, you're not really a felon. You're not going to go to jail. If you get caught, we're going to give you a ticket. So a whole bunch of people are stealing $950 or less, not just every day, but every store, and getting a ticket. And the cops say, okay, stop doing that. And the guy goes, oh, what? You can't send me to jail. Sheriff Villanueva, who I just interviewed, said, you've taken away our stick. We can't make it, okay, either you're going to dry out in jail or you're going to dry out in rehab, but dry out you will, you're going to get up off the street. I can't do that anymore, he said. Now, why is the government doing this anyway? Churches should be doing this. They know how to better get people off the streets, make them more self-sufficient. And some level of them are going to become self-sufficient. And when they do, there's going to be no low-cost housing for them, no low-cost apartments, because we have CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, that basically stops any developer for building anything for any reason. Anybody can file a lawsuit and hold things up. I talked to a developer, he said, Larry, 22 years ago, I had a 2,000 home development. I got sued.
Oh, man.
I cut it down to 1,000, got sued.
God.
Cut it down to 500, I got sued.
Damn.
Cut it down to 200. 22 years later, 200 instead of 2,000. This is why we have a housing shortage.
Yep.
One of the many things I'm going to do, if and when I'm lucky enough to become governor, is I'm going to waive and suspend CEQA to unleash these developers. I have been told by several developers there are something like 500,000 units all ready to go if only the lawsuits stop. Now, they were able to stop CEQA for that Sacramento Kings Stadium for a billionaire. They waived it. But for a regular developer, they won't waive it? I'm stopping that. My father came here in 1945, 8th grade education, 8th grade dropout. He worked 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets. Stay-at-home wife, my mother. We had 3 boys, the youngest of whom enjoyed a stay-at-home mom until the youngest was in middle school. That route for an 8th grade dropout to buy a house in South Central, which is now worth $600,000,
Wow.
is impossible if you work 3 or 4 jobs because the cost of living has gotten so outrageous. The average price of a home in California is 150% more than the average price of a home in America. Outrageous. And the reason kids are leaving for the first time, people making between 50 and 100K are leaving California for the first time in our state's history. Number one reason cited, they cannot buy a house. That's got to be reversed. It's going to be reversed. One of the frequent guests on my radio show was a brilliant economist named Leo Hanian, teaches econ at UCLA. He said, Larry, the average price of a home in California costs 50% more than it otherwise would be, but for all of these environmental rules and regulations. That's going to stop. So the cost of housing, outrageous, crime, outrageous, homelessness, outrageous, and the way this man shut down this state, ignoring science, depriving you of our rights and liberties. I thought this was the land of the free and home of the brave. It's going to be that again if and when I'm lucky enough to become governor. So I'm asking you all to please throw something in the tip jar. Go to electelder.com, electelder.com, because this man can raise and spend an unlimited amount of money. That's right. And most people estimate he's going to raise and spend at least $50 million to defeat me. I have campaign limitations of $9.7 million, and here's why. In order for me to put a 500-word bio on the ballot, I have to agree to the campaign finance limitations. And I said, why? And they said, well, if you don't have a bio on there, people won't know who you are. So we agreed to that. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But there's another way that a millionaire and billionaire, to quote Bernie Sanders, can put money in. There's another committee called Larry Elder Recall Newsom Ballot Committee. Larry Elder Recall Newsom Ballot Committee. For some of you out here who are billionaires and millionaires, and sir, I know you're a billionaire, I can just tell. I can just tell you're a billionaire. You just kind of low-key so you don't want anybody to ask you for money, I understand that. People can put in whatever they want, because unless people inside California and outside California do that, we can't beat this guy. Now, why should somebody outside California give a damn? 2 reasons. Don't you want people to stay here, California, enjoy the beautiful state? The second thing is this. I have a whole bunch of friends who live in Washington, Oregon, Texas, Florida, and they say, Larry, why do people leave California and bring their left-wing politics with them?
Oh, Lord.
That's because they haven't connected the dots. All they know is they can't get a house. They don't know why. They don't even know about CEQA. I was giving an interview to a black newspaper up in Sacramento, and I said, I was walking in, I could tell they weren't feeling me. Uncle Tom, bootlicker, sellout,
Oh,
Oreo,
Lord.
coconut.
Oh,
I got it.
racist.
I said, you were just complaining about the price of a house. I said, you ever heard of CEQA? He goes, what? I said, CEQA. It's a California Environmental Quality Act. You never heard of it. And I told him about all these rich, elite liberals who belong to the Sierra Club and the ACLU, and they filed all these lawsuits that stop the supply of housing from going up. Supply and demand. Low supply, high demand, price goes up. Rob Reiner, some years ago, there was a development project called Amundsen Ranch in Ventura County. I will concede the land was beautiful. It was pristine. But unless Rob Reiner lives on a houseboat, wherever he lives was probably pristine at one time too. And so they stopped the project, and 10 years later they gave themselves a high five. And I read the article about it. Not one word about the fact that 9,000 people who would have had homes didn't have them. There are trade-offs here, and they don't care about trade-offs. All they want to do is stop stuff, and it hurts middle-class people and lower-class people, the people that they claim that they care about. So if you care about California, you care about making sure that the California dream is still here, you care about people with an 8th grade dropout being able to buy a decent house like my dad did, please go to electelder.com. Let's get this guy out of here. Final thing. The ballot is real simple. 50% plus one has to vote to get him recalled.
Yes.
If that doesn't happen, it doesn't matter how many votes the Republicans get. I'm already ahead. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about making sure 50% plus one votes to get this guy out.
plus
To
one.
tell your friends and neighbor, there's a reason for the high crime. There's a reason for the high homelessness. There's a reason for the high cost of living. And it doesn't have to be that way. We're going to clean this up. Go to electelder.com and on to Sacramento. God bless you and God bless America.